shy. This is one of his rare appearances. So if you look at him now, you see even when he sits here, he wants to put on a cap. In fact, there's a little joke, you know. For many years, and I didn't know about it, I just found out about this, I think a couple of years ago only, after 15 years in the business. Many people in Singapore thought that David Liu was my pen name. They thought I was publishing myself. Because they didn't know who was David Liu. So one day David told me, I said, no, we got to stop this. You got to show yourself, I said. And so here he is. But this is David's fourth collection of poetry. And it was inspired in part by his, I think, his participation in the Avon, in the Singapore, in the Avon-like Writers Retreat, organized partially by the Literary Centre and the British Council of Singapore. He spent about 5 days there, locked up in an island, and eating wild boar, and having wild boar, and yeah, and he decided to write some poetry, some poems. The other person is, of course, Grace Chia. This is Grace's first collection of poetry after 10 years. And 14.
98, and now is what, I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. More than a decade. I didn't want to say more than a decade because they would date her a bit, but anyway. But it is a collection where all the writers in Singapore, publishers and writers in Singapore have been waiting for a long time actually. And she told me that it took her 10 years to write this collection. So buy the book. Yeah? You can buy the books later and get them to sign. The books are at the counter at the front there, right? You can purchase them from the front there, right? Okay, I will not, I will just hand it over to Gui now for him to continue. Gui will moderate the session and he will ask them tough questions. You guys can ask them tough questions too later, if you want to, yeah? Alright? Okay, sure. Good.
I don't know what's.
Alright, maybe we start by David reading a poem, followed by Grace reading some poems. So like, you get about 5-10 minutes to do that. 10 minutes each, yeah? And then Gui will start the interrogation.
It is not going to be interrogation.
Actually, following up on what Ko Fang said about me, I was quite surprised just a couple of days ago. I was looking into this catalog or some kind of directory that was produced by the NEEC, and I saw a little write-up about me as one of the Singapore writers, and it says, the first line, David Liu doesn't like to talk about himself. And I just wonder how that got in there, you know. But anyway, yeah. A fellow writer said at one of the discussions I attended that he preferred writing poetry to writing prose. The reason being that he said it was easier. Now, he's a great poet, he is, and I'm not so sure if it is easier, but I'm also sure whether that actually contributes to the large body of poetry that's being produced in Singapore. But one thing I know for sure is that many writers, like myself, and especially the young emerging writers, owe a lot to one person, and that person who has for 15 years been driven by a passion to promote Singapore literature. And of course, you know, I mean Ko Fang. And I thank you for once again publishing my work, and this being my fourth collection of poems. And as he said, and as the title suggests, much of it, or a part of it, was inspired by my attendance at the Avon workshop, where a group of 12 people went to, I mean, Ubin, of course, tutored by a British writer, Cordelia, and our very own Christine Su Chen Lim, in a very idyllic setting to pursue the Singapore literary dream. And I recall that one day, many years ago, maybe a day in the early 80s or 90s, I cannot remember. And Mrs. Hedwig Anwar, I don't know how many of you know Mrs. Hedwig Anwar, came up to me and said, so when are you going to write the great Singapore novel? Now, a question that is commonly asked of many young writers, especially young emerging writers. And that amused me, and I'm still somewhat amused whenever that question pops up. You know, we are very practical people, very task-oriented, and I just wonder whether going to Ubin, we were supposed to be, you know, finding clues, dig around, to find the buried Holy Grail under some literary tree between the hours of sunrise and sunset. I wasn't sure. But anyway, there we were on Ubin trying to be writers. Okay. So I shall read this poem, Ubin Dreaming. A bunch of idealists, idiots dipping at the tongue, to be dreaming on Ubin and aspiring to wake into the pages of a book of a man Booker or Nobel. What a cluster of clam eaters baking in mud, the tide ebbing long before they became aware. Are we misplaced or displaced? More aptly, we've been disowned. Cynicism, punching with post-colonial pride. All his life he has not read a homebred scribe. Do you really believe you can be better than the masters? An alien language we cannot sufficiently know, understand, or feel. The Ubin sunrise may all, rising tides inspire, but the Penn's well is dry. Devoid of wars we have not lived, the days transposed without scandals, the days transpired without scandals. HDB clones a symbol of good life. Let's face it, the Writers' Festival is all about blood and Neil Gaiman, not a lion. We have sung and will again sing, where have all the flowers gone? Perhaps when Ubin becomes mosquito-free and we do not draw water from the well, when wild boars disappeared from the hills and no stray dogs roamed the beach chasing crabs. Perhaps when Ubin stops dreaming, and so do we. Well, Profang talked about the wild boar, which is very much, I'm surprised, very much a subject of interest in today's urban Singapore. I shall skip that, but actually wild boars on Ubin was for us a diversion. We were supposed to be watching sunrise and sunset and, you know, and be inspired, right? So I shall read the next poem, 6 Sticks in Sunset, 109. Seems a sorry sight, 6 sticks spearheading into the sky, was left on Kalong, once teeming with life, the mud flat and nip tide, where the dogs raise a ruckus around the strained catfish, and we in our verandas watch how the sunset paints a different picture. 6 men on stilts on a golden pond, the cares abandoned, the stories echoed in our silence, yet there are tales we are afraid to tell. In the darkness of our fears we see sticks, only sticks, 6 outside the sunset. Now, of course, I have been to Ubin a number of times before the Urban Bookshop in my younger days when I was much younger. And I couldn't help but recall those days, and while there I wondered, you know, whether the experience I had then as a young man was any different. So I shall read this on page 105, Pulau Ubin Report. I was here when youth, crude and careless, wasted no time dreaming. There were no ideals to pursue, just a troop of day trippers, completely physical, bursting with vim. Jungle commanded our respect. I will confess we were afraid of snakes. there were tales of roaming tigers, and we left the wild boars alone, happy to be sharing the sun. With starry-eyed iguanas and barnacles, we skirted the north shore, broke the waters, skied up the Kim, more wary of crocodiles than the law. Yet, we'll take our chances. The exuberance of youth. We didn't have to dream, we were there. Maybe life was much, much simpler then. We were not that easily confused by the things that happened around us. For example, we never questioned Raffles' right of place. So this next poem is titled Raffles on page 108. I do not forget the story details of how in a quiet night he empties a bucket of paint on Raffles by the river and turns a white man blue. When in moonlight he sees how sad the night has become, he paints him white again. This time, Raffles smiles, proud of his new coat. Yet he understands not why he's berated for painting a white man white, but for the undercoat of blue witnessed only by the moon, and his strange compassion for a statue, not the man he knows later on. This unusual passion to inject new life where negligence nests. I'll read one more poem of this section before I move on to something else, and then I'll pass on to Grace. This is titled Survival. Probably knowing how task-oriented we are as a people, how lucky we are to be Singaporeans, but I don't know how we fare when we cross the cultural lines. And this is really about somebody I knew who was going to the United States. It's called Survival. He arrives in the Big Apple, security a dictionary of survival words, language that will help him navigate the alleys, protect him when he cuts across Central Park after dark. Ways to swear and inflect the four-letter curse, freedom to speak what he means, mean what he says, say all he's got, and expel, and not regret, and simply forget. Man, at Chinese High they didn't teach him that. Never dirt in his school of repute. A house of good parentage they have ill-prepared him. His greatest fear, they'll never understand, to die in dirt, a saint, when he could speak dirt and survive in the company of demons. I'll read a couple of poems from, is it time? Okay. From one other place that inspired me. A year later, in 2010, I was fortunate to join a group of people, fellow Singaporeans, to Cape Town, this time under the umbrella of the Spotlight on Singapore. Yeah. And personally, one of the best things that happened to me on this trip was getting to know Ubin. And he was a key personality for that event. As you know, that he was tasked to put together an anthology called Man Born Free. Right? Now, Spotlight Singapore, as I understood it, is all about connections. All right, but I think above the opportunity to create, this connection, so that Singapore and at that time South Africa could then follow up economically. I think what is more enriching to me was the connection with the people as a people on a human level. Right. So I shall read this on page 18 for connections. Gui finds connection in the voices of men born free. Isa finds his Malay connection, pays homage at the Kramat. Rosemary connects with tales without boundaries. Children do not discriminate, the same manner as Marjorie would illustrate the universal Alice in Wonderland. I've been gifted to connect wisdom, simple truth in the words of the Rhodes houseboy. Brother, he says, we all come from the same land, and to that same land, brothers, we shall return. Now, Cape Town is a beautiful city. I enjoyed it a lot, and one of the writers with us said that what she found amazing was something very simple. She had never seen skies so blue in her life. Right? So I wrote this called Blue Skies on page 17. Back home, she has never seen skies that blue. So clearly blue, the sun casts unambiguous shadows across the land. In shade as in light she walks, a new spiritual freedom between the trees. Impressed by ancient columns still standing in the bizarre, variegated street colors dance, callous in the wind, the music of honesty, a definitive depiction, completely distilled of doubt in black and white. She looks up. No undefined clouds. Blue skies, clearly blue skies. There will be plenty of stars tonight, a myriad of them when in darkness burns the brightest light. And of course, to me, Cape Town could be anybody's city, anybody, you know. So this poem on page 22 says just that. This could be my city. This could be my city, a riot of colors, like diversity, untidy spaces, blue skies, where I was there. This could be my people. I walk among them unalienated. I see faces weathered by history. I trace the scars behind the smiles. I hear voices unafraid, unashamed, tell ugly tales of the past, yet sing a good life. Outside the Mandela roads, the choir breaks the barriers of time, space, and race, of which there's only one. This could be my story, Genesis, where it all begins. And finally, you can't talk about Cape Town, or this, you know, for us there, without mentioning Bishop Tutu. I think you all know Bishop Desmond Tutu, who he is. So this poem, the last poem I'm going to read, is on page 16. It's titled Bishop Tutu Swinging on a Chandelier. What's Bishop Tutu up to swinging on a chandelier? This puny man who at Mass this morning spoke God's words so gently, so softly, so with a smile. What could have lit the fire in his belly? And now he's flying in his purple robe. What distraction while we try to read. Oh, a naughty man indeed is he. If he comes crashing down, we all lose our heads. But then we're men of little faith. They worry way too much. You see, Bishop Tutu makes light of things when they become too unwieldy for our little brains and hands. Hence this poem, at last, the inspiration when it all comes to light. Thank you.